Hi, this is DrClyde, and we are now on step 5 out of 6 on optimizing your sports nutrition in this mini course. We're going to look at hydration and electrolytes and then putting everything together into the big picture. So the recommendations from the American College of Sports Medicine, International Society for Sports Nutrition, International Olympic Committee on hydration really default to the World Health Organization National Academy of Medicine recommendations for general health, which averages out to around 1 liter of water per every 1,000 calories that you eat. And these sports nutrition governing organizations really focus on what to do during exercise, and then if you're deficient on your hydration because it's high intensity exercise, there's no way to get enough fluids and to manage your electrolytes fully, then you can finish that to replete your fluid losses and electrolyte losses afterwards. And that amount of fluid loss should avoid dehydrating by more than 2% of your body weight. So for every 100 pounds that you lose, you don't want to lose more than 2 pounds from dehydration. Perspiration generally ranges 0.5 to 2 liters an hour, depending on how hard you're exercising, how high your core temperature goes, and the environmental conditions, right? Humidity prevents you from perspiring. Higher temperature increases perspiration, so there can be a competitive effect there where you're at risk of heat exhaustion and potentially heat stroke if you're training at a high intensity in a hot, humid area. And essentially what you have to, the only way to figure out how much you're perspiring is to do a weight change across a hard workout under similar conditions of like a competition or a hard workout that you do fairly frequently, where you want to know what is the rate of my perspiration, how much salt am I losing. Every 2.2 pounds that you lose across a workout is 1 liter of perspiration, and we lose on average 600 milligrams of sodium or 1/4 teaspoon of salt per liter of perspiration. So if when you're doing a weight change measurement, you're drinking 1 liter in between the two weigh-ins across a workout and your weight didn't change, that means you drank 1 liter and perspired 1 liter and therefore weight didn't change. If you drank 1 liter and still lost 2 pounds, that would mean you perspired 2 liters and had replaced half of that. So the kind of a schematic for electrolyte losses in this cartoon, I'm demonstrating by having the upper half being your bloodstream, which has the sodium chloride, the table salt, that's the main electrolyte. And then inside the cell, that's the bottom half. That's where you have the potassium, then magnesium and calcium. You don't lose nearly as much of that in your perspiration because they're not in high levels in the bloodstream. So I'm going to change the font size now so you can see how much of these electrolytes you're losing in a relative sense in sweat. The table salt loss is dramatic. Potassium losses are fairly small, calcium even less than that, and magnesium you can barely see at all. So it's really sodium chloride that you would have to worry about. If your muscles are cramping and potassium supplementation helps you reduce the cramping, that might not be because you've lost a lot of potassium, unless it's like a 12-hour event. It might be that your muscles are cramping from depleted fuel, and then adding potassium helps mitigate some of that. And so that is kind of a red flag that you're not refueling previous workouts enough, or you're overpacing and therefore using a higher percentage of glucose than you had hoped for because you're overpacing your training. Sometimes athletes, particularly novice competitive athletes, will overpace compared to what they're trained for because their ratings of perceived exertion are less during a competition. And so then they'll overpace, use more glucose than they had hoped, and then they'll end up bonking. And they could increase, and the fuel loss could also lead to muscle cramping, but that might not be from potassium loss, even though potassium intake can mitigate it. So big picture with hydration, you need about 1,000 calories for every a liter to process, deliver, and use every 1,000 calories that you eat. Your exercise losses will generally be 1/2 to 1.5 or 2 liters in an hour. To know how much you're losing, you do a weight change across a workout. For every liter that you're losing, that's 600 milligrams of sodium or 1/4 teaspoon of salt. That does not mean that you should consume salt after your workout. Most people get more than enough salt to replace 1 or 2 liters worth of perspiration. If you're losing more than 2% of your weight as perspiration in a workout, and you eat really clean, don't add much salt, you don't have a lot of soup or soy sauce or gravy where there would be higher salt intake, then you could end up urinating every time you drink water. And even though your urine is clear, you're actually dehydrated because you can't hold on to your water. That's why you're urinating so much through the day. If, on the other hand, you're eating more salt than what you're losing, since it takes the kidneys 24 or more hours to clear out excess salt, now you're going to wake up a few times in the night to urinate. So urination rate goes up in the day when salt levels are less than what you're losing, and urination rate goes up in the night when salt levels that you're consuming are more than what you're losing. So have some water evenly throughout your day. That way you're facilitating the digestion, delivery, and use of the calories. So you want a hydration flow through your day in the same way that you want a carbohydrate and protein flow through your bloodstream through the day. So in the big picture, think about your water and protein flow. And when it comes to calories and carbohydrates, think where you're in the deepest deficit to try to get a little bit in to protect the lean tissue that you have. Even if you're not healing and adapting for a few hours, at least you're protecting the lean tissue so that you don't end up with overtraining symptoms within the space of a week because you're pushing your training so hard and your nutrient delivery for too many hours so low that that deficit then pushes you into overtraining symptoms, when in reality, you could be training harder, right? So it's overtraining. For 83% of athletes, it's from undernutrition and therefore under healing, making overtraining a misnomer. And make sure that you're nourishing your body with healthy fats and vegetables at least once, if not twice a day, and choose foods that you enjoy to meet your food group needs. If pizza is something you love, have a salad with it. And if it's low in protein, if it's just the cheese and you don't want to have like extra thick cheese to get enough protein, have, chicken chunks or tofu chunks on there, or have a glass of milk or soy milk on the side. So have your pizza, in other words. If you want dessert, then, have legumes that gives you a really slow digesting carbohydrate, and then have a small dessert right after the meal. It'll mix with the healthy calories, come into the bloodstream slower. Don't exclude things that you enjoy. It is not sustainable to be tortured and not enjoy your life. Anything that is like that feels like work. So you want to include the things that you enjoy together with nutrient components that slow down digestion so that they can really count as recovery meals. So the 80-20 principle, that 80% of the benefits you derive in life, whether it's financial, academic, or nutrition, will come from just 10 to 20% adjustment of what we're doing, of what you're doing. So to figure out what that 10 to 20% is, first, you want to know what is a significant source of slow carbohydrate, protein, healthy fats, and use wholesome food sources so that they are delivered into your bloodstream to last from that feeding until the next, and then avoid an unnecessary intake of processed food. Unless you really enjoy that processed food, then have food with it, like a bag of pre-washed lettuce or bell pepper pieces or baby carrots. Have something with that you can eat before or with it to slow down digestion. So if I'm having a burger, I'll have a bag of lettuce and I'll just shovel that in as I'm eating the burger. It's really hard for me to eat pizza and burgers anymore just by itself, because I know that it's closing down the spigot and forcing calories to go the wrong place, and I'll be even hungrier later because of the roller coaster ride in my blood sugar. So once you get a sense of putting this together so that you have a nutrient flow for your sports nutrition, healing, and adaptation, then test the amounts and the timing, cut back, add, and see what the responses are as you have more or less of the various components. So the flow of calories should avoid lean tissue loss, so you never go into a deeper deficit than 25%, regardless of how much you eat later, and regardless of whether you're trying to lose weight in a healthy way, gain weight in a healthy way, or maintain weight. Regardless, you don't want to have an episode in your day where you're in a deeper deficit than 25% for more than a few hours. And in terms of macronutrients, know what counts as a slow carbohydrate, or how to slow down a faster digesting carbohydrate, like vegetables with pizza, for example, or salad with a tortilla in a burrito, and know what counts as a protein. And in terms of nourishment, the food groups where the food quality is the most important is where there are double bonds that oxygen likes to attack, which is the antioxidants in vegetables and the unsaturated fats, like particularly omega-3 and 6 that your body cannot make. And the way that you gauge how you're doing is how rested you feel when you wake up, your muscle soreness, and how your mental and physical energy levels going through your day. Waking restfulness gives you a sense of how deep your sleep was, which is a gauge of the rate of gene expression to make gene copies from your DNA to set the stage for protein production. And your energy levels through the day gives you a sense of what the energy supply is for protein production. And then your healing rate tells you how well that energy supply and gene expression is reassembling amino acids as the first step towards healing. So in our sports nutrition flow model, avoid pseudo-overtraining or undernutrition, underhealing, by refueling immediately after workouts so that your body can adapt to almost any type of recovery meal that has at least a little bit of each of the 4 food groups, where vegetables should be at least once, if not twice a day, and healthy fats at least once, if not twice a day, where within your week somewhere there needs to be a sufficient amount of omega-3 and 6. I talk about that in the Metabolic Nutrition mini course. And protect your lean tissue, even when you're not building and healing, at times in the hours where you're eating less, by having a bit of a snack of a protein and a slow carb, like a hard-boiled egg and a plum or a small piece of fruit, or just a glass of milk or yogurt. Now, if it's soy milk, you don't want it sweetened with sugar. That's a fast-digesting carbohydrate. You'd want unsweetened soy milk, and then with that, have a small piece of fruit. So protein and carbohydrate. Regular dairy milk has both. Soy milk has the one, but not the other. So you have a small piece of fruit with it. Easy to accomplish that. Even a large cappuccino or latte, you've got dairy in there. But if you're using a soy milk, then you'd still want a small piece of fruit. Almond milk, rice milk, oat milk, those are missing either a carbohydrate or a protein, right? Almond milk and rice milk, almond milk is high in fat, so it doesn't, and you don't want it sweetened. That's not the solution, is to have a sweetened version of these things. So we're looking for a substantial, not a large amount, but a substantial protein carbohydrate. If you have questions on what you're consuming on a regular basis, look at the food label or ask or look up what is a typical nutrient breakdown for what I'm using. This brings us to the 6th and final step of optimizing your sports nutrition in our next video.